So the role of the CFO has evolved dramatically over the years, from a focus on balancing the books to steering strategic growth across an entire organization sometimes. With the rise of integrated platforms and advanced technologies, what does the modern office of the CFO look like today? I'm Scott Leahy, and this is Esker On Air. Joining me today is Emmanuel Olivier, worldwide COO of Esker, to explore what it means to lead the truly modern CFO function. Emmanuel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So the role of CFOs, as I've mentioned, has changed a lot over the years. First, can you explain what we mean by the office of the CFO today and why it's more than just the finance department?
Right. I think what CFOs are facing today fundamentally are two things. One, as you mentioned, they're more and more involved not just with finance, with keeping the books and giving hopefully reliable financial information internally and externally, but they are really becoming a true business partner. They work for companies that are ambitious, that want to grow, and they want to grow in a sustainable way, which means they have to be organized in the way that they continue to grow at a rapid pace without losing track of what essentially they're trying to do. And to be able to do that, you have to integrate the CFO in the company's strategy to begin with. As a CFO, in order to be in this position, you have to rely on a set of systems that will feed you information that is relevant for that role that you now have for the whole of the company and not just finance. And this is the problem. Because if you look at the IT environment that you find in finance departments in general, what people think immediately about is ERPs. Well, I've got everything in my ERP. Well, in that sentence, there's a number of wrong statements. First of all, ERP without an S, that doesn't exist. Like if you're growing, you're going to have multiple ERPs working in parallel. Just because you're making acquisitions and you cannot integrate fast enough all the ERPs that you have acquired compared to the growth that your company is experiencing. So you constantly have to work with multiple ERP solutions. And this is not even mentioning all the legacy solutions beyond or aside of ERPs that your company is for sure using as well. So you have to rely on that IT infrastructure, which is very diverse, not very well integrated, and will never be one ERP. So the vision of, I've got everything in my ERP does not exist. So you have to rely on an infrastructure which is not as unified as you would hope as a CFO. And this is a reality. The vision that Esker has, because you can have two ways of fighting this. You can say, you know what, I'm going to develop a plan by which I'm going to consolidate all the ERPs that I'm using so that eventually I find myself in the position where I have just one. The reality, and this is what, companies and ERP vendors have tried to do for many years. And I don't mean to criticize ERP vendors. I mean, they do a difficult job, and I'm not going to say it's easy at all. What I'm going to say is that logic is not the right one. ERPs are complex solutions to change. To change an ERP solution in a company, you're talking years. By the time you're done, you have acquired more companies and recreated a number of new problems with the new ERPs that you have acquired. So I think you have to change the mentality there, and you have to quit thinking that eventually the problem will be solved with one ERP solution, because it will never be solved. You will always live in a situation where you're going to work with multiple ERPs working together. And this is the idea of the Office of the CFO. The Office of the CFO is a way to cut through all the silos that all those various ERPs really are in order to achieve company goals, company-wide goals, despite the structure of your IT environment.
So yeah, I think you summed that up really well. There are a lot of ERPs in the mix, a lot of other solutions that a particular company might be using. So I think a lot of people look at the office of the CFO as kind of this central hub, so to speak. So how have the core functions evolved there from what maybe they used to be?
The evolution there is also interesting because, we talked about the complexity coming from ERPs, and it's not new. People have come to realize that, not to oversimplify, but in a way this is true, ERPs are part of the problem more than part of the solution sometimes for a lot of companies. And companies have started to work on initiatives to compensate for that difficulty that they were having with their ERP infrastructure. And typically that meant working with other systems that are outside of ERPs and solve all the various problems that you can have in the finance department. What I mean is you're going to work with an AP automation tool, for instance, such as Esker. You're going to work with a collections automation tool, such as Esker, a procurement tool, a contract management tool, a purchasing automation, a procurement management tool, an e-sourcing tool, and I can go on and on forever. And you know what? It worked to a certain level because every time you were implementing something separate from your ERP infrastructure, you were solving a problem. And you were going after those problems one by one, solving them one by one, except by the time that you've done all that, you create another problem, which is a set of dedicated, supposedly best-of-breed solutions addressing all of these smaller aspects of what the finance department is doing, and essentially created another mess on top of the ERP mess now. And so this is where the office of the CFO really plays a role. The idea of the office of the CFO for Esker and for the market as we envision it is a system, a platform that will allow the CFO, or people working in finance, to address their problems in a situation where everything is interconnected, despite the fact that systems are disconnected. And so what you have to do in order to do that is essentially offer a set of solutions that are very wide and not necessarily very deep in all aspects of what they do. In other words, take a platform approach that solves a lot of problems, but may not be necessarily the best at solving every individual problem. In other words, you have to look at the big picture, try to solve the big picture, which is not always the sum of smaller pictures being solved, because that creates another problem which now you have to address. So that's the whole idea of the office of the CFO. Go wide, don't necessarily go deep in everything.
Yeah, so you mentioned, these solutions solve one set of problems, many sets of problems, but the solutions therein may cause another set of problems. So CFOs constantly, themselves have a lot of challenges to tackle, but that's where technology becomes a major tool for support. So how is the tech reshaping the office of CFO?
I think this is an exciting time that we're living now, because technology now allows tech companies such as Esker to address the problem I just talked about. I mean, it's not easy. If that was easy to solve all the problems and have the whole office of the CFO vision become a reality, it would be done, and it's not. So there's a reason behind it. It's complex. The rise of AI, for instance, is making a lot of the things that we're talking about possible, or possible in the future. If you address the problem in the way that I explained, in the way that Esker is addressing the problem, with the idea of putting together a platform that addresses the whole scope of what finance wants to do. And AI is critical for that, because it's changing, first of all, the power of IT. The computing power has nothing to do with what we were able to do in the past. So the automation component of what we do is a lot more powerful than what it used to be even 5 years ago. But it's also changing the relationship between humans and systems. And this is bigger than people think. And AI does that through agents. In other words, you can now talk to systems using natural language, plain English. You can ask your question, you're going to get an answer without having to code anything or go through multiple screens and clicks and this and that you may do wrong at some point. So just ask a question, get your answer. That seems simple, but it's a game changer. It's changing the relationship between people and systems. This is exactly what is going to allow IT environments in the back office to reach a whole new level in terms of their performance.
So, yet as technology evolves, we're seeing a move away from separate tools that we've already talked about to, in a perfect world, these all-in-one systems. What are some of the main reasons why a CFO might want to consolidate those solutions?
Because business is a chain. And as you know, the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. And so when you rely on silos, and there could be technology silos, IT silos, systems that are siloed, or they could be human silos, generally linked to technology silos. If you rely on those structures, you're missing the point. Because the point is really to improve the business as a whole. We started by talking about the fact that the CFO now works for the good of the company as a whole and not just for the finance department. And so if you rely on the system that's giving you only a part of the information for every problem that you're trying to solve, it's going to either take you a long time to solve the problem or give you the wrong information, possibly leading to wrong decisions. And so why would a CFO want a platform that connects everything? Just because they need to respond to the business needs. And again, business is a chain. And you can't look at one part of the business, ignoring the other, and assume that you're going to make the right decision.
And so obviously the shift toward integration and technology is happening, right now as we speak. But what should CFOs be thinking about right now to help prepare them for what is coming?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because everything that we're talking about is a vision, is a journey. Again, the office of the perfect office of the CFO solution today does not exist on the market. There's a number of companies contributing, and Esker is one of them, one of the leading ones. There's a number of companies working towards that vision. But personally, I think, that's why I call it a journey. It will never be completely done or forever done, because you will always want something else done with that solution. And the advice that I would give to CFOs when they talk to vendors such as Esker, in my opinion, they need to do two things. First, of course, and they're doing this, they need to understand what that vendor has to offer today. It's important. We live in a world that is rather uncertain and unpredictable, as we have seen in the last few years. So when you make an investment, and choosing any IT system is an investment for a business, you need to understand your return on investment, and so understanding what you're getting, when you're getting that value, and what does that mean to your business right away, that's super important. But you also need to understand where that vendor is going. Everyone's in the cloud now. Cloud solutions have one thing in common: they constantly evolve. So in other words, when you get involved with a vendor, you know what they have to offer today. You also need to understand where they're going, because you have to make sure that the direction that this vendor is going to take is okay with your own strategy as a CFO and your company's strategy, because again, you're working for the company as a whole. That is maybe not as usual or natural for buyers of IT systems. So I would advise take a moment to understand who your potential vendors are, what their vision is, where they want to go, because you know what? Wherever they want to go, you're going to be going there with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you went right into what my final question was going to be, which was, thinking about any potential vendor and thinking about the journey that they might be on, and obviously you're going to be on that journey with them. Is there any other advice you would give to a CFO? Anything else to think about, when looking at vendors that maybe they should, have an eye towards?
Yeah, we're going to touch on what I just said. For me, it's extremely important to combine the two aspects. What am I getting now, and what am I getting involved with in the future? For me, that's a key question. And I know at Esker, we strongly believe in the Office of the CFO vision. We strongly believe in breaking down those silos in IT, in the back office, so that the finance in general, admin departments in general can better respond to the challenges that their companies are facing. And beyond that, because this is kind of a negative way of thinking, respond to challenges. What that really means, what we really mean when we say that, is offer their companies a platform for growth for the future. And oftentimes in the back office, we're often seen as being in the back office, so we're in the back and not in the forefront of what's going on in business. I think going in this direction would put the back office as the frontline, fighters that will actually allow their companies to grow, and that's the mentality that we have at Esker for our solutions.
Well, fantastic! Thank you, Emmanuel, so much for sharing your insights on the modern Office of the CFO. It's been great having you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So if you're curious about how Esker Solutions can help streamline your finance operations or tackle challenges in the Office of the CFO, check the links in the notes for more details. And as always, to learn more about Esker, you can find us at esker.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.